All right, good evening, students. Thanks again for taking the time to attend the session and again for your patience. Um, Welcome to your ECS 1501/1500 session. I know in the past we have done just ECS 1501, but tonight we are going to, make it a little bit interesting, where we use the first hour for 1501 and the second hour for 1500. Please note that your microphones and your cameras were disabled or are disabled, but students, if anything is unclear, please let me know in the chat. I'm also joining with, of course, my phone is already on over here. So, yeah, if there's any questions or concerns, if I'm going too fast, please let me know. All right. Okay, let's continue. So, we've done elasticity questions last week, eh? But I just want to touch on what we've done last week, students. Remember this question over here, all right? And I also said that the general form, of course, the one that we use, if they did not specify the point formula or the arc formula, is that we use the arc formula. We are not wrong over here, students. Are we following? If you can remember, I've uploaded this the notes as well, eh? We were not wrong. Okay, however, according to the memorandum, students, I'm going to read the question out again. Eh? Yeah, of course, you can see it in front of you. Right. It says when a local shop called Burger Boot decreases the price of hamburgers from 40 Rand to 35 Rand, the quantity of hamburgers demanded increases from 800 to 1,150. What is the price elasticity of demand for a burger at Burger Boot? That was question 3.A. And question 3.B said, of course, it says it because we have it open in front of us. How can Burger Boot increase its total revenue made from hamburgers based on the price elasticity of the demand for burgers? And then when we looked at our answers over here, students, right? We've looked at our answers over here. What we did was, as you can see over there, we used the ARC formula. Are we together? We use the arc formula over there. Okay. However, we were not wrong, students. Please note that we were not wrong. All right. It's just that when I went back to, go over the memo, I see that the form was actually the point formula. Are we together, students? Are we following? The formula that was actually used in this example over here was the point formula. Like I said, we weren't wrong because we used the arc formula. We went a little, we've thought a little bit outside of the box there. All right, but please note that if you look at this question over here, students, right, this question as is, question 3 and as well as question 4, as is, we should have actually used the point formula. I'm going to type it here. So for this one, we should, right, we should have used the point formula for both question 3 and for question 4, right? But the thing is, we can still do it. We can just make another, PDF out of this and out of that. And then, of course, we can use the point formula. Are we sorted with that? We can still do that. We can use the point formula. And from this point onwards, we are going to look at maybe 1 or 2 questions on utilities and, of course, some questions on production and costing. But let us do that quickly. I'm just going to, yeah, let me take a snapshot of it, the snipping tool. So I don't want you to, let's say you would have done your assessment and you followed Shadian's approach and then you got the question wrong. And you come back to me and say, but Shadian, we got this wrong. You were wrong. You see, please note that we weren't wrong, all right? We were correct. It's just that we were supposed to use the point formula. But let's say the question asks us to calculate it using the arc formula, then we would have been absolutely correct over there. So I'm just going to paste it in a Word document. Okay. And then I'm going to convert the document into a PDF. All right, so I'm just putting it there. We can leave that area open to do the calculation, and we can put number 4 here. All right, we can do number 4 as well. So we are going to use for both. This is income elasticity, eh? So we are going to use it for both the point formula for both number 3 and number 4. All right, let us do that. Okay. Of course, our answers for 4B and 3B still remains the same, students. Don't worry about that. It still remains the same. Eh? Okay. It's just that sometimes most of the times the arc formula and the point formula, one would yield elastic, the other one would yield inelastic sometimes. All right, so just bear that in mind. Okay, so let me just save this. Just save it as a PDF. Please note that this PC of mine is still in the 18th century, so please bear with me. So we say elasticity point formula example. Right, and then of course we save it as a PDF. Today's date is the 7th of the 8th month, 2025. Alrighty then. There we go. Did this thing print now? Why? You see what happens? It's printing. I didn't print stuff. This thing is printing. See this I wasn't supposed to say that, right? Because so this is a recording. But anyway, yeah. Right, but let's keep the sessions, keep it interesting and humanistic. All right, let's not keep it like one-dimensional. Okay, so I'm just waiting on it to load, students. All right, we are almost there. There we go. Can you all see now? Can you all see? Can you all see? Students, can you all see? Of course, you can see your names right now, but if you can see your names, you can see my screen. Okay, now let's do this. Right, so it says when the locals, we don't need to read that again. We get our prices and our quantities is there. So let's do this. So our formula, students, our point formula. All right. Remember, elasticity is denoted by EP, elasticity of demand. And of course, it is the change in the quantity, right, divided by the change in the price, right? This is the point formula, students, multiplied by the price over the quantity. Okay. Now, students, in this example over here, okay, with this example, and of course using the point formula, right? Please, of course, this is on the record. Okay. If you get an example like this, all right, if you get a question like this, okay, you can see over there. Of course, this was an old paper from 2017. I know with these days they will specify, most likely to specify the formulas to use. Okay. You would then, if you see it like this and there's no mention of a point formula, there's also no mention of an arc formula, students. Then you use the point formula. Okay. You can see over there in this one, there's no mention about the old price. There's also no mention about the new price. So what we are going to do is we are going to follow this formula. Okay. And now we're going to do our simplification first, our substitution, right? We know it's EP. The change in quantity is quantity 2 minus quantity 1. We divide that by the price 2 minus price 1. That is the price, the change in the price. Eh? We multiply that, students. Now you look at this price over quantity. Which price and which quantity do we use over here? In this formula, students, where they didn't specify the point formula or the arc formula or elasticity at the old price or elasticity at the new price, students, we always assume, students, that it was our default price, which is our first price, P1, and our default quantity, which is our quantity 1. Are we together, students? That is what we assume. Remember, in economics, we assume, okay? That is what we assume, students. And you can, of course, you can't reference it when you're doing an MCQ, but you can have a look at the recording. All right, so now let's do this. Okay, so we have our formula over here. Let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger. Of course, yeah, there we go. Now nice and big. Then we can do the substitution now, students, because we've done the formula. Okay, so quantity 2 is 1,150, right? Minus quantity 1, which is 800. Okay, we divide that by price 2, which is 35, minus price 1, which is 40. We multiply that. What is price 1? Price 1 is 40. What is quantity 1? Quantity 1 is 800. Do you see? All right, now let's do further simplification. 1,150 minus 800, I think that is 350, am I correct? So it's 350. Where did we get the 350? We got the 350, it's the 1,150 minus 800 over there. In case you were wondering, Shadian, where does the 350 comes from? We divide that by 35 minus 40, students. 35 minus 40, that is, of course, negative 5. And of course, we multiply that 40 divided by 800, right? We can simplify that because 800 can be divided by 40. Eh? So if you take 800 and you divide it by 40, students, that would give you 20. Am I correct? 800 divided by 40. Am I correct on my side, students? If I divide 800 by 40, I get 20. Okay. So basic mathematics over here. 40 divided by 40 is 1, eh? And then, of course, 800 divided by 40 is 20. So 40 over 800 can be simplified as 1 over 20. Okay. Then we can do some further simplification because 350 divided by negative 5, right? That would give us negative 70. Okay. Negative 70, yes, that is our slope because we're calculating price elasticity of demand here, students. Remember what we've done last week, right? When we went through our notes. In fact, let me open our notes over here because that is also very, very important, right? Our notes. We always make a reference to our notes over here, students. It is a formula sheet, but it doubles as our notes as well. Okay, so we always reference our notes. Let's continue. So the slope is always negative because you're calculating elasticity of demand. And then, of course, if you can further, students, simplify 1 over 20, I think that is 1% or 2% or 5%. It's 5%. Yes. So 1 over 20, if you can put that as a decimal, students, it is 0.05. Can somebody give me the answer over there, please? Can you put it in the chat, the answer? The elasticity answer over there. So it says it's negative 3.5, eh? We got negative 3.5. That is absolutely correct. Yes. Let me just see. Did we follow the protocol? Sure, we did. So negative 3.5, students, over there. And of course, remember when calculating elasticity, your answer will always be negative, but we use the positive answer. Okay. And our elasticity is now equal to 3.5, right? And please note, students, whatever answer that you get, because you're most probably going to do another MCQ assessment, right? The answer that you're going to get for elasticity is always, so not for elasticity, for elasticity of demand. When the question says calculate price elasticity of demand, whether it is the point formula, whether it is the arc formula, your answer will always be negative, students, right? But let's say we did the calculation now, we got negative 3.5 as our final answer over there. But then you might see in the options over there, there's no negative 3.5. I don't want you to panic. It's just that we use the positive value over here. You see, there will most likely be a positive 3.5 in one of the options. And if there is, students, that is your option that you are going to take. All right, because that is the correct option over there. And of course, you can see it is 3.5, which is greater than 1, but less than infinity. So the demand in this case over here, the demand is elastic. And of course, as we mentioned last week, students, if your demand is elastic, then people are sensitive to price. Eh? If your people are sensitive to price, if your customers are sensitive to the price, what can you advise any business to do with their price in order to increase their total revenue? If people are sensitive to the price, then we can say over here Burger Boot, because we've said that we've agreed on it last week. Burger Boot should decrease their prices. Because if they decrease their prices, what's going to happen, students? The quantity demanded is going to increase way more than the increase in the price, than the decrease in the price, my apologies. So if they decrease the price, the quantity demanded is going to increase more. So people are going to buy more burgers, and in buying more burgers, the total revenue of Burger Boot will increase, right? Increase total revenue. Are we sorted thus far, students? Are we happy? Okay. I don't think it's highly unlikely, Tima Disa, that something like that would have happened. Right? It's highly unlikely. They're either going to show you the negative 3.5 or they're going to show you the positive 3.5. Right? Because if they do that, then they would contradict it. It serves no purpose. Okay. So hopefully that clears any misunderstanding. It's a good thing that you think about it in that way, that you're thinking about it in that way. But it is highly unlikely that something like that would happen. All right. But anyway, so that is how we got to the 3.5, students. Okay. You can I'm gonna upload this onto the OneDrive, so you will be able to view this afterwards. All right. Let's move on to 4. Of course, this is our answer for 3B as well. Eh? Let me put it in there. This is our answer for 3B. That's for 3B. Now let's move to 4. Now remember, students, again, we were supposed to use the point formula, but we weren't incorrect as well. We weren't wrong. So if you look at number 4, remember this is now income elasticity. And according to the notes and according to the theory as well, students, please note that whatever formula that we use under income elasticity, whether it is the point formula, whether it is the arc formula, we can get a negative answer, we get a positive answer. All right? If you get a positive answer, it's a normal good. If you get a negative answer, it is an inferior good. So with income elasticity of demand, and what we also did last week with cross price elasticity of demand, we can get a negative and we also can get a positive, right? But with price elasticity of demand, we will always get a negative answer, but we use the positive. If we were to have calculated price elasticity of supply, we will always get a positive answer because of the law of supply. All right, just remember that. But let's do question 4A using the point formula. All right. So income elasticity of demand is denoted by EY. So the only thing now, students, instead of having the change in price, we have the change in income. And income is denoted by Y. Just remember that. I'm going to put it in here. I know this will sound familiar to the ECS1601 students, but please note, in microeconomics, in calculating income elasticity of demand, this income although in a micro context, is also denoted by Y. Right? So income is denoted by Y. Okay, so it will look, our formula would look something like this, students. It is the change in the quantity, right? Which is the change in the demand, yes. The change in, sorry, that's a Q, eh? Students, that's a Q, right? Please note that that is a Q over there. And then, of course, the change in income, right? And of course, we multiply that, students, by the income over the quantity. Now, please note for this formula over here and for this instance, students, we are going to use the default, the first income, right? And the first quantity demanded over here, eh? In this example over here. Now, if we do that, students, we can, of course, we can do the substitution first. We have EY, right, is equal to what is the change in the quantity? It's quantity 2 minus quantity 1. And divided by Y2, income 2 minus income 1. I see there's a question in the chat. Let me just look at that or comment. Right. Okay. All right. And then, of course, we multiply that, students, by the initial income, right? The initial income divided by the initial quantity. Okay, now we can now do the substitution. That is just the formula, simplification of this formula. And now we do the substitution. And after the substitution, we do the simplification again, and we get the answer afterwards. Okay. All right, now let's continue. So quantity 2, right? Our 45 liters is our quantity 2, and the 40 liters is quantity 1. Eh? I should have actually put it in here. Right, so it is, let me do this first, students. So 45 is quantity 2, that's Q2, and 40 is Q1, eh? In case you were wondering. Because I don't want you to, please, it will be disastrous, students, if you mix your quantities, whether you're calculating elasticity of demand or elasticity of supply or what income or cross elasticity. It's going to be disastrous if you are going to switch up your quantities. Eh? Please note that the one that is mentioned first is the first one. So in this case, you see that 12,000 is mentioned first. So our first income, students, is 12,000, right? Our second income is 16,000 in this case. Don't ever switch your incomes, don't ever switch your quantities, don't ever switch your prices. Okay, you don't want to do that. It will be disastrous. You're going to get 0. All right, and of course, if you choose the wrong answer, your answer is correct. Sorry, it's incorrect. It cannot be made correct again. So please just, reading is very, very important, students. Right? Very, very important, but I know I can talk a lot. Let's continue over here. So we take the 45, we minus the 40, right? We divide that by the 16,000 minus the 12,000. Okay, we multiply that by the 12,000, which is the Y1, divided by the 40 over there, which is the quantity 1. You see, we can do further simplification, students. 45 minus 40, that is 5. All right. And of course, 16,000 minus 12,000, that is 4,000. Okay. We multiply that by 12,000 divided by 40. 12,000 can be divided by 40, students. And what would our answer be over there? I think that would be 300. Am I correct? Just check on your side, students. Right? 12,000 divided by 40. What is our answer over there? That's 300. Perfect. Okay. We can do further simplification over here. All right. Because 4,000 can even be divided into 5. You see, so we can take 5 divided by 5 is 1. 4,000 divided by 5, that is 800. Are we correct, students? So it's 1 over 800, yes. Are we together? How we got the 5 over the 4,000 is equal to 1 over 800? Perfect. All right. And we multiply that by 300. Can somebody give me the answer for me over there? Okay. 0,375. Absolutely correct. All right. And of course, over here, students, you don't have to make it a negative. If you get a negative answer, it stays that way. If you get a positive answer, it stays that way. If the question says round off to 2 decimal places, it will be something like 0,38. All right, students. So I do thank you for your answers over there. You are absolutely correct. Okay. And now you see over here, students, if we look at 4B, it says based on Sophie's income elasticity of demand for petrol, explain what type of good petrol is. Now, if we look at 4B, students, remember whatever answer you get, if it is a positive, it is a normal good. If it is a negative, it is an inferior good. Okay. And with a normal good, it can be divided into two, right? If it is positive and between 0 and 1, greater than 0 but less than 1, then this good is essential or a necessity. But if it is positive and it is greater than 1, then that good in question is a luxury. Even if it is 1.01 or 1. What you call it, 1.1 or 1.2, it's still greater than 1. And it must still be classified as a luxury. All right. Even if you get corn or a bag of maize meal that has an income elasticity, a demand coefficient of positive 1.02 or positive 1.1. Right? Millie meal in itself, maize meal in itself, students, is not a luxury. But according to theory, if that is our coefficient that we've calculated, we unfortunately have to classify it as a luxury. But in this case, students, petrol for Sonia is essential. Okay, you can put there 4B, right? 4B is a normal good and also an essential good, or we can say it is a necessity. Are we sorted, students? Are we sorted? Perfect. I'm also gonna upload that, because that is yeah. So now you have two. We have the point formula, right? And then of course we have the arc formula. All right. Let's continue further. So I'm also going to share with you this. As you can see, students, we work on 2017 and 2016 questions. But like I said, the theory, especially for microeconomics, the theory remains the same. The bulk of the theory remains the same. So don't for once think that these are old papers. Of course, they are old papers, but still relevant. Still bits and pieces over here that are relevant. Okay, let's look at we've done that. Okay, right, we've done it according to the yeah, so don't worry so much about that, students. Okay, you see, this is an interesting question, question 5 over here, because it's cost theory, production and cost theory. So what we can do is, let me take a snapshot of question number 5, that is cost. Okay, and we're gonna do this together, all right, and let's do this. Let me open up another Word document, and that is a cost table over there. We're going to use that, and we're going to use that space for all the calculations, and we are going to go further. Okay, so that's PPC. We're done with PPC, right? So don't worry so much about PPC. Factor or circular flow, we're also done. Demand and supply, we are done with that. This is Sophia. This is an interesting question. Okay, this is utility, students. All right, we're gonna take this. All right, let's make a new one. So this person's name is Moses. Nice name. Okay, let's do that. And of course, we're going to have our notes open as well, students. We are going to have our notes open as well, eh? So, all right. Let's look at the other questions as well. This is a MCQ, a mix between those two. So it says number 19 and number 20, eh? So we're going to copy and paste number 19 and number 20 as well. Again, students, the aim is just to apply what we've learned. All right, last week I remember I gave you some context on it, but I actually wanted another question, man, on production. Actually wanted another question to find a question on production. Then of course, then we have production and cost, and then we also have utility and of course elasticity. All right, so just bear with me in that sense, students. I'm sure we are going to find it. Okay. All right, let's look again at our exam pack. There's average total cost. Now we don't worry so much about that. There we go. This is interesting. All right. But this is a perfect competition, man. Students, you haven't started with the market structures as of yet. Eh? We started with perfect competition, with monopoly, with oligopoly and monopolistic competition. Am I correct? You haven't started with that. But please note that those learning units, as I spoke about last week, it flows from the production and cost theory. All right. So yeah. But are we sorted thus far? Let's continue with that. Of course, we can continue with our calculations again next week as well. Okay, let's do these two over here. Okay. Right. So I have it open here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to save it as a PDF, and then I'm going to need your input. I don't know why this thing wants to print. I'm going to need your input over here as well, students. Okay, so have your calculators ready. All right. So I'm going to save it as a PDF. It's going to be cost theory, and utility. Right, and today is the 7th of the 8th month, 2025. All right. We're going to do the utility question first, and we're going to do the other one afterwards, right? We're going to do the cost theory question afterwards. All right. Let me close the other stuff. Don't need so many stuff open. It's going to oh, sorry, I didn't save the changes. Let me just save the changes. There we go. Saved. So yeah. Oh man, I just did. What's happening now? Sorry. There we go. So hopefully I can exit that now. There we go. Yes. So let's first move on to this question over here. Let's zoom in a bit. Right, so it's based on, it's an MCQ question, but the question is based on this table over here. As you can see, you don't have to do any calculation. Everything is calculated. The total utility is there, marginal utilities are there, and the weighted marginal utilities are there. All right. And of course, there's for that the same for beer because Moses enjoys steak and beer. Now, this is consumer theory. Remember, consumer theory is the aim of the consumer is to maximize utility, to maximize his or her satisfaction. Okay. So the table shows the utility Moses gets from consuming steak and beers. Use the following table to answer questions 18 to 20. Okay. We don't have to read the table. We're going to reference the table in our questions. It says over here, when will the law of diminishing marginal utility set in for beer setting, right? When will the law of diminishing marginal utility for beer setting? Remember, if we go back to our notes, students, okay, these are our notes. If we scroll down, all right, when we talked about utilities last week, right, we say over there, yes, the aim of the consumer is to maximize utility or satisfaction, all right? The more we consume, right, the higher the total utility. However, total utility will eventually reach a maximum. Thereafter, it will decline. Also, students, the more we consume, the lower the marginal utility. When marginal utility reaches zero, total utility is maximized. Are we together thus far, students? Are we following? All right, are we following? Like I said, this is recorded, so you can go to the recording. Okay, so it says over here, when will the law of diminishing marginal utility for beer set in? Now let's look at beer, students. So this is the units consumed, eh? So it's the units 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's both that for steak as well as that for beers. All right. Now you see, students, let's look at beers. What happens with steak? Let's look at beers. Right? When of course when you consume nothing, you can't get any satisfaction because you ate or you drink nothing. Then there's nothing that you satisfaction or enjoyment that you can derive because you've consumed nothing, right? So the more we consume over here, you can see the increase in the amount of beers and steaks. What happens to the total utility? Total utility increase, students. Do you see that the total utility increase over there? But what happens to the marginal utility? The marginal utility begins to decline. Do you see that? So the marginal utility at the first beer was 105, do you see? But when he consumed the second beer, right, that is where marginal utility decreased. Are we together, students? That is where marginal utility started to decrease. From the first beer to the second beer, do you see? So over here, I don't think we should have actually closed that exam pack over there. Let me just open it again. Exam pack. Want you to open the exam pack. ECS1501. There's a lot of archives over here, students. I call this my archive because lots of folders and stuff that I've saved in folders over here. Yeah. Okay, there's the exam pack 2018. Yes. I'm gonna share this with you as well, students, because I feel that it is useful. Okay, so there is our answers. All right. Let me just go to the questions. All right. So that was the first one. Let's look at the answers. This was question what? Question 18, eh? Section B says 18, 19, and 20. So 18, you see over there, that's the question, students, and that is actually the number. In case you were wondering, when I share this with you, and you want to go and you want to work through it, right? Please note, you see number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that is the options next to it over there. The answer for question 1 was number 2 for section B, right? The answer for question 2 was number 1. The answer for question 3 was number 3. All right, that, to avoid any confusion. Are we together, students? If you want to look at your answers based on the memo, and you see, okay, this is what it actually tells me over here. Okay, let's continue. I just wanted to see if I was correct. Eh? I had done. Okay, so it's the second option. So if we were to go back, you see over there, the second beer. What did I say, students? Right? The point at where the marginal utility began to decline. You see it over here? where marginal utility began to decline, students. You see, at the first unit, at 1 unit of beer, when you drank one beer, his marginal utility was 105. But then when he went on for the second beer, I mean, most likely people, you just can't drink one beer, right? You want, let's leave it there. But anyway, you see what happens when he increases his consumption from one beer to two beers. What happens is that his marginal utility began to decline. So our answer over there, students, when will the law of the marginal utility, um, law of diminishing marginal utilities for beer set in? And our answer is number 2, the second beer, right? The second beer. It says also over here, students, it says over here, what is the cost of beer and steaks respectively? So we actually over here, we now, you see, they did not give us the prices over here, students. Are we following? In this questions, there's no prices over there, right? There's no prices over there. So we actually have to calculate the cost of beer and the cost of steaks. But how do we calculate that? Now let's see, right? What is the formula for total utility? Let's look at the formula for total utility. Okay, let's go to our notes. You see there? Of course, there's no form total utility, but total utility is always given. But if you were to have calculated backwards, students, you see over here, right? At the first unit of whatever good you consume, your total utility and your marginal utility are always equal to one another, which means, right? That's at the first unit. When we move on to the second unit, you see what happened to total utility? It increased from 100 to 170. So that means to calculate the marginal utility at the second unit, it is the 170 minus the 100. 170 minus 100, that gives us the 70 over there. 200 minus 170, that gives us the 30 over there. 195 minus 200, that gives us the negative 5 over there. You see, 175 minus 195, that gives us a negative 20. Also, we could have calculated in this way, right? If we want to calculate backwards, students, okay, if we want to calculate it, to calculate backwards, right, from marginal utility to total utility, okay, you take the 100 over here, plus the 70 over there, that gives us 170. Do you see? 170 plus the 30, that gives us 200. 200 minus 5, that gives us 195. 195 minus 20, that gives us 175. The same way over here. But we can't calculate the price from the marginal utility or the total utility. Do you see? Because look at the formula for marginal utility. It's the change in the total utility divided by the change in the quantity over there, right? But in calculating the marginal utility or the weighted marginal utility, I was supposed to put that formula in over here, right? The weighted marginal utility, students. This is now the formula for the weighted marginal utility, or we call it marginal utility per rand, right? Per rand. And you know how we get that, students? We are going to take the formula for that is the marginal utility, whether it is for good X or good Y, divided by the price of good X or good Y. Are we together? Right? We can say it takes effect, right? Or sets in or takes effect. When does it take place? Right? Remember when you consume something and you are starting to feel bad afterwards. Let's say you are full now, but then you start you to drink more. That is where heartburn sets in. They normally say heartburn sets in or heartburn takes effect. Are we together? What does set in mean? You can go on Google and find out what does the word set in mean. Okay. Anyway, students, where were we? All right. The formula is for the weighted marginal utility or the marginal utility per rand. You see, we take the marginal utility, right? Let me zoom in a bit over here. Take the marginal utility and we divide it by the price. You see, marginal utility divided by price. Now, sorry, that's weighted. Let me just put there, weighted marginal utility. Let us just copy and paste our formulas over here. All right. So what is the cost of beer and steak respectively? So now we are going to find the answer over there, students. Okay. All right. So what we are going to do is we are going to copy the formula for weighted marginal utility, because look, we were given the weighted marginal utilities over here. There's the weighted marginal utility, and there's the weighted marginal utility. Do you see? Now, students, I want you to take note of this. In order for you to find the answer such as this, in order for you to find the price or the cost of steak and beer, you always look at the margin, you always look at the first row, right? Because that is your main indicator. Why? Because your weighted marginal utility does change if you move along, right? But please note, students, in order to find your answer, in this case, which is the price of steaks and the price of beer, we use the first line, the first row. So now let's first look at steak. Okay, let's first look at steak. So at the first unit, let's look at steak. Right? At the first unit. At the first unit for steak, students, the marginal utility is what? What was the marginal utility over there? Is 100. Do you see? The marginal utility at the first unit of steak is 100. Also, what was the weighted marginal utility? The weighted marginal utility is 2. So that means, students, to get the price of steak, remember, we are going to take, to get the weighted marginal utility of 2, we would have taken that 100 and we would have divided it by a number. Now, if that number is an unknown, students, we make that x. So 100 divided by x is equal to 2. I mean, that is pretty self-explanatory, students. All right? 100 divided by something is equals to 2. If that is our answer, then of course, if we divide 100 by 50, then of course, that is equal to 2. Are we together? We don't have to go through any mathematical lengths over there, because that is something that we can calculate. Am I correct? We can calculate that. 100 divided by a number is equal to 2. Then of course, we can guess that number, because 100 divided by 50 is equal to 2. So that means, students, the price of steak is 50 rand. Are we together, students? You see, we're now getting somewhere. Okay? Are we together? The price of steak is 50 rand. And of course, like I said, students, time management is a very, very important. Eh? You have to manage your time. So you see these options over here. There's no other option that says steak is 50 rand. There's only one option that says steak is 50 rand. That is the one that you are going to choose. Please, but of course, if it is a timed assessment, students, then that will be useful for you to choose the answer, because it will save you maybe 5 or 10 minutes. However, it is not a timed assessment. You can just make sure, double check, triple check, quadruple check, etc. Right? And please note, to calculate the price or the cost of a good or service, right? We look at the marginal utility and the weighted marginal utility at the first unit. Not at the 0 unit, at the first unit. Eh? That is how we are going to find the answer, students. We can do the same for beer. All right. Let's just copy and paste this. Of course, we have to change the value, students. So for beer, right, just to make sure, okay, You see over there, for beer, it says at the first unit, the weighted marginal utility, sorry, the marginal utility is 105 and the weighted marginal utility is 7, right? So that means at the first unit of beer, if the marginal utility is 105 and the weighted marginal utility is 7, then of course it would have been something like this: 105 divided by x is 7. All right. That means I'm going to say this is a little bit so what you're going to do, students, you're just going to take the 105 to get x. You're going to divide it by 7. All right. 105. Can somebody give me the answer over there, please? 105 divided by 7. That's 15. Absolutely correct. Eh? So the price of beer is 15 Rand. You see. And then, of course, our answer over there is number 4. Right? That is our answer over there. Number 4. Are we together, students? This is just one of the ways in which the questions can be asked. Eh? Just be on the lookout for that. All right. Now let's look at number 20. This is very, very important, students. Okay. It says, which of the following combinations will maximize Moses' utility if he has 160 to spend on beer? So basically, students, when we talk about maximizing utility in a table such as this, where we have 2 goods or even 3 goods, right? This basically means we are looking for consumer equilibrium. Right? We are looking for consumer equilibrium using marginal analysis. Because basically what we have been doing over here, students, another term for this is marginal analysis. Right? When you move on to the second year, when you move on to 2601, you are going to do indifference curves, etc. We're also going to talk about consumer equilibrium, but this in the context of indifference curves. All right. But in the first year, you do consumer equilibrium using marginal analysis. All right. It links with one another. Like I said last week, right? What you are doing in the first year, it provides a foundation of what to do in the second year. Second year economics builds on what you've learned in first year economics. Okay. So this is consumer equilibrium using marginal analysis. Right. Now, the conditions, students, for consumer equilibrium. You see over here, we have 2 goods. We have steak and we have steak, and then of course we have beer. All right. So now the condition for the first thing that needs to hold, students. The condition that needs to hold is that the weighted marginal utility for steak must be equal to the weighted marginal utility for beer. Right? We can write it in a much more nicer way. We say marginal utility for for steak, right? Divided by the price of steak, that's the weighted marginal utility. Marginal utility divided by price, that's weighted marginal utility, in case you were wondering. Okay? This MUS divided by PS is the same as WMU steak. It's the exact same thing. Right. And then of course MUB for beer, right, divided by the price of beer, the exact same thing. Okay, as the weighted marginal utility for beer. That is the condition that must hold first. There must be an instance, students, where your weighted marginal utilities must be equal to one another. The second condition that holds, students, whatever quantities you get over here, if we multiply that quantities by the respective prices, it must exhaust your income of 160 Rand. Only then you will be able to reach consumer equilibrium. because that point of consumer equilibrium is where you satisfy or where you maximize your satisfaction, yes, but also at the same time you exhaust all of your income. And that is the point where the consumer will maximize their utility. Are we together, students? That is what the theory tells us. All right. So let's look at it in this way. Let's look at it in this way. Okay. We know this is the condition that must hold. Now let's go back to our table. Okay. We're only looking now at the weighted marginal utilities. All right. Now let's see. Let's use a different color to identify that. Let's use a green color. Yes. Okay. You see over there, there's a 2, students, right? But you don't see a 2 over there. So that means that cannot be the condition. But what do you see over here? You see a 1.4 over here. And you see a 1.4 over there. So now you see there is now one instance. You see it here and you see it there. So that means, students, this optimal, you see there's no other instances. There's 0.6, there's no 0.6. Negative 0.1, there's no negative 0.1. Negative 0.4 this side, there's no negative 0.4 this side. So this means this is our condition over here, or this is our instance where that condition is met. Are we following, students? Are we following? This is very important, okay, because this is one of the ways in which the question can be asked with marginal utilities. All right. Are we following, students? Right. We can continue with this next week. Don't worry. Okay. So now you see there's the only instance where both appear. It appears over here and it appears over there. What that means, students, we now look at the quantities. So that means this optimal bundle for consumer equilibrium over here is 2 steaks. You go to the quantity over there, that's 2 steaks, right? And you go to the quantity over here for beer, that would be 4 beers. So now let's see, students. We now need to see whether 2 steaks and 4 beers multiplied by their respective prices is equal to 160. And if it is equal to 160, students, then that is our consumer equilibrium. That is where Moses is going to maximize his utility. But let's just check it first. Remember, it's 2 beers, 2 steaks and 4 beers. Now let's see. Remember, we already have the price and the and of beer and the price of steak. So we just need to check. And the only way that we're going to check it, students, so we can know that the bundle is, so let's say the bundle according to the above consumer equilibrium condition is 2 steaks and 4 beers. Right, there's the answer already there, but we need to check it first, right? So we're going to take 2 steaks multiplied by the price of steak. The price of steak is 50 rand, plus 4 beers multiplied by the price of beer, which is 15 rand. Can somebody do that, please? 2 times 50, that's 100, plus 4 times 15, that's 60. 100 plus 60 is 160. And so now you see, that is in fact the bundle for consumer equilibrium. Because 2 steaks and 4 beers multiplied by the prices exhausts your income of 160 rand over there. Do you see? So that is definitely our consumer equilibrium. So it's 2 steaks and 4 beers. Are we together, students? That is how we would find our answer. Okay. Now in this case, this is a simple example over here, students. You see, there's only one instance where the weighted marginal utilities are equal to one another. But there can be examples where there are more than one instance. You could get 3 values over here, and you also get the same 3 values over here. So there can be more than one instance where this condition holds, where the weighted marginal utilities are the same. But please note, out of those instances, only one is our true consumer equilibrium, because only one of those bundles will exhaust all of our income over there, right? Whatever income amount they put in there, only one of those instances will exhaust our income, and that is what you have to check out for, students. All right, are we sorted? Are we sorted with that, students? So I want you to have a read through this, eh? The recordings will be most likely available after 72 hours, students, but please send an email to ctntut@unisa.ac.za should you require the email, the recordings as soon as possible. Okay, I want you to have a read through it as well. Okay, so I'm gonna put it in here. Kindly email ctntut@unisa.ac.za. All right, students, I believe I'm gonna stop the recording there for 1501. Okay, but before you leave, please whilst you still you can complete